Welcome back to PlayStation Corner. My name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Terminator Resistance Enhanced on the PS5. This is an improved build of the 2019 release, but how does the enhanced in the title stand up? Well, thank you to Reef Entertainment for the review copy today, and with that, hit subscribe, join our growing PlayStation family, and let's get started. The story on this one sets itself around the future war events that are seen in the original two movies, and that seems to be the game's focus. Pay homage to T1 and T2, ignore the rest of the series, and in my eyes that is a wise move, and no doubt many fans will agree. Here though, we find ourselves nearly 30 years after Judgment Day, and we take on the role of Jacob Rivers, a soldier in the Resistance led by the one and only John Connor. Sadly though, a bad day is about to get worse, and you are now considered a threat to Skynet, and you are now marked for termination. Along the way then, you can simply follow that main storyline or take on side quests from the large cast around you and find all sorts of Easter eggs throughout this world, paying respect to both the movies but also building upon the lore. I really enjoyed the story. It does a good balance with its action and then storytelling to give the game some pacing shifts, and while the writing, it can be a little bit cheesy at points, it works and it feels very much in keeping with the universe, kind of working to push what we know of this world forward, while again, as I said, paying its respects to the source material. So gameplay, and it would be easy to look at this one and think generic first person shooter, and that is not the case. I actually think what they went with here was quite a bold move, as they blend together elements of games like Fallout, Borderlands and Stalker. So think almost moments of all-out action like Hollywood set pieces in linear locations to more open, small sandbox exploration and looting, even just like downtime between missions where you get to kind of explore your base of operations and connect with the cast. Terminator Resistance absolutely does not want to be a simple first-person shooter, so it adds in a little bit more, and that makes sense given the franchise and setting, and what I mean by that is there is an RPG element to all of this. Before I do get into that though, first off, there is two ways to play this one: all-out shooter or stealth. I opted for the latter, and I do think the game is at its best in these moments. There's some serious intensity though, you're sneaking through this post-apocalyptic landscape, you're surrounded by T-800s and other enemies. That for me is where this game absolutely kind of shines and earns the Terminator name. Both options though feel great. Shooting is pretty much a traditional first person shooter, aim with the left, trigger shoot with the right, you can heal with med packs, you can throw grenades, and then stealth, apart from getting used to that first person perspective for these moments, it's all a case of course of keeping out of sight. At the top of the screen in the center, you will see when an enemy has spotted you. Backing up the combat though, then expect to be leveling up with XP. This in turn unlocks points that can be used on a skill tree across 3 different categories. That's combat, science and survival. How you play will very much determine how you spend your points though, so be wise with them. For me, my stealth focus, I wanted still high gun skills and strength of course, but then I needed things like lockpicking skills and an increased backpack size. It's always nice having that option though to shape your character as you please. Now the reason for the backpack then is inventory. As you travel this post-apocalyptic LA, not only will you be taking out a ton of enemies, but there's plenty of crates, locations to scavenge and just goodies to pick up. So think the likes of lockpicks, bullets, and the much of course needed health packs. You're going to be using them a lot. There is no health regen here. You can then also simply sell these at the many merchants you will meet and trading crates as well. This was my go-to personally: sell what I don't need, buy what I do need. It cost a little bit more, but I liked the increased speed. The game though keeps the story moving relatively swiftly, though I will say here this is probably Terminator Resistance Enhanced biggest problem. While the missions have some weight thanks to the plot points you are hitting, the missions, they largely resemble fetch quests, as it drops you in a location and gives you a waypoint to get to. It's not really a bad thing necessarily, it does try to mix things up even, but I would be lying if I didn't say I can still see a lot of missed potential in this area. I think a big issue the game has, if anything, this is the future war, so it's kind of dialed up to 100 from the opening moments. From there on out though, it struggles to get a consistent sense of escalation, escalating danger in the scenarios we are facing. That in turn leads to a difficulty curve that is a little unbalanced. One level may kick your ass, and then the next kind of seems nice and simple. I think here a little balancing and maybe some reorganization in the game structure would have helped out a whole lot. One thing I do think they got really right though was the sense of dread you should feel when a Terminator heads your way, and that is for the first half or so of the game. You just can't do anything in these moments but stealth around them until you find more powerful weapons, and that's exactly what it should be like. These are brutal machines. The game respects that, and in turn they will crush you in second, but they do feel like a very real threat, and that is all I ever wanted. Other issues then, the AI isn't great. Once you get powered up enough to take them on, you kind of start to recognize how dumb they can actually be, and a flank will nearly always get you out of a situation, and on more than a few occasions they did kind of get themselves stuck in the environment. There's also a few moments that can cause insta-death as well, and I'm never a fan of those personally. Fortunately though, I am going to add here, these moments, they are at least few and far between. The main story here though, it runs right around 8 to 10 hours, dependent on if you go just straight through the main story or talk to everyone and complete all side quests. Then though, you also have a couple of endings to uncover for that replayability factor, and it also throws in DLC that is known as Infiltrator Mode. This puts you in the role of a Terminator, and you need to gather intel to uncover your main target's location. It runs about 45 minutes and it needs to be played in one sitting. Finally then, like frame rate, how does it perform? And I can tell you now, much better than what was seen on the PS4, with this delivering the locked 60 FPS as promised in gameplay, and the combat and just everything in general feels a whole lot smoother for it. So graphics, and it's for sure showing its age, there's no question about it, but it never particularly looked amazing on the PS4 either. What this enhanced edition basically seems to give us is a boosted frame rate, along then with improved resolution, and I actually thought the game looked quite good with this extra boost to clarity, especially for the textures. Terminators and all enemies here look incredible, and they capture the animation of these foes perfectly. Nothing quite as intense as watching a knockdown Terminator like on fire get back up, and then the locations nice and varied, from destroyed landscapes to the Hollywood Hills. The environments, they can be a tiny bit repetitive at times, these especially the the sandbox locations, but otherwise, look, overall I think they've done what they promised and polished it up. The Infiltrator DLC then for sure has an interesting look to it as well, which I'll be playing in the background right now. Basically the entire screen just goes red. The main problem with graphics for me though, it's gotta be the character models for the Resistance, especially when you're having the conversational segments. When they're running around on the battlefield, it's just fine, but talking to them, dead behind the eyes, and about as much emotion as a brick wall. They definitely look better, crispy new resolution, but that really hasn't done them any favours. It just makes it now even more obvious. Graphically speaking though, you need to understand this is not a AAA release. It was a relatively budget game, and that's nearly immediately apparent. It's very much going to still feel like last gen with a bit of polish, that HD upgrade, but that's really all you can typically hope for from one of these kind of enhanced releases. Audio finally, and it's decent enough. I mean, if you like Terminator music, it has the themes, and that's all I went in wanting, honestly. The explosions though, gunplay, it all sounds decent enough, and I particularly liked the sound of bullets pinging off my enemies. Voice acting then here, I actually really do like. It can be a little over the top at points, but generally it is decent, with some good voice actors in here kind of leading the story, and then some kind of average ones backing them up. The only issue for audio, I had a couple of moments in the game where a sound effect would maybe loop for 30 or so seconds, and a few where just for a few seconds the game went entirely silent. So the final verdict, and for those that don't know, Terminator Resistance did not do good back on its original release with critics. I think the average on Metacritic is right around 40%. In fact, I've got to say those scores stopped me from playing it at release, and I actually picked it up later in a deep sale, and I ended up enjoying it, and it seems a lot of gamers out there did too, because the audience score is actually between 70 to 80, and it is now a bit of a cult hit. It's funny, but I could never get my head around the incredibly low score. scores, and I still can't honestly. It's a great treatment of the license, and it feels like it was made by fans for fans, with clearly a ton of effort going into making this not only fit into the world but build upon it in a way like fans would appreciate. And that's really the thing I'm trying to get at here. Look, if you're a fan of the Terminator series, you should absolutely play this, especially if you haven't played it before. Yes, the AI can be a little bit dumb. There's the occasional minor audio and visual glitch, and the gameplay is repetitive. But in the moments when you're sneaking around a wave of Terminators, you just can't beat it. It captures exactly what a Terminator game should be, and the story, it's a great ride into the future war. It's by far, in fact, the best Terminator game ever made, even though I've got to say it doesn't have a ton of competition. A good 7 out of 10 from me then personally. It's not a huge visual bump, but the frame rate is for sure appreciated. The higher resolution, never a bad thing, and as a Terminator fan, it's good to see it back. The only thing I will add though, like not a fan of the series or not hugely into it at least, I'd knock a point off of this score, or even go as far as saying I don't recommend it to you. This game's value is in the Easter eggs, the references, and its characters. I'm gonna say it again, it's made by fans for fans. With that though, look, will you be adding this one to your collection or hoarding onto that cache? A big thank you then from me for checking out today's review here on the channel. That's kind of our thing, reviews, deals twice a week covering PlayStation stores in the US, Canada, UK, EU and Australia, and then even the occasional bit of news. If you haven't already though, like, hit subscribe, join our growing PlayStation family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.